It gives me great pleasure to introduce Donna Kerridge. One of the things I love about Ngā Toki Whakarururanga is the wonderful, amazing Indigenous people and women that I get to meet. Donna is the founder and the director of Ora New Zealand. She is a Rongoā Māori practitioner, a teacher and an advocate of over many decades, to a number of organisations, and has served on a number of expert advisory groups representing the practice of rongoā. Donna currently serves as the Rongoā Māori kaihautū for Ngā Toki Whakarururanga, and it's a pleasure to introduce her. Kia ora.
Tēnā koutou katoa. It's wonderful to be here, but I'd just like to start off by acknowledging our ringawera and our haukainga for the wonderful kai that we had today. So thank you all very much. Your manaakitanga to all of us here is gratefully appreciated. Also to our guests from across the shores, thank you very much for joining us today. Your presence gives us energy. So kia ora. And I'd also like to thank those amazing people that have already spoken this morning, who've paved the way for this day, Jess and your team, to Annette, Aroha, Jane, for their tireless work, often at great personal expense. And I just want to acknowledge that they have paved the way for those of us that are here today. And your hard work continues in terms of your encouragement of the rest of us. Ngā mihi ki a koutou. It's a privilege to walk alongside these people, and I have to say that your energy puts fire in our belly, and that the number of people that are here today is testament to the work that you guys have done on our behalf. So kia ora. I'd also like to reiterate what Maui was saying about Y262. If Y262 had been addressed, we wouldn't be having this conversation today. Unlike other Waitangi claims, from my perspective, it wasn't about the grievances of the past. It was about looking to the future. And it still is. And it's really important that we see that work continue. Y262 is the platform upon which we operate today, ensuring our own indigeneity in the world, because with that comes amazing gifts. So we honour the whānau who took this claim and their predecessors. You are not gone. You live in us. So, to get down to my speech, which is not a speech anymore, thank goodness, and Annette gave us some good prompts at lunchtime. All you need to do is talk about why we need to protect our medicines, what we did and what we learned. And I think that was so much better than what I had planned. So kia ora, Annette. So why do we need to protect our medicines? Well, one of the things is that's what's happening today is that our Rongoā Māori, of which that's the area that I have the most focused in, is being reframed by the Crown, slowly and very, very planned. Rongoā Māori is not green pharmacy, which is what the Crown would have us believe. It is not green pharmacy, it is so much more than that. Rongoā Māori, in its essence, is about elevating and restoring the mana and the mauri of people and place. Mana is our currency. And when mana is replaced by money as a currency, we are in real trouble. It is our job to maintain the mana of our tupuna, the mana of the whenua, and the mana of the generations yet to come. That is our job. That is Rongoā Māori. The other things that are happening out there in the world that we are seeing more and more of, and particularly through free trade agreements, is that we need to protect access to those things and the sustainability of those things that keep us well. Of the taiao And at the end of the day, it's not about a kawakawa is good for this and a kumarahau is good for that. It is about access to clean water, to clean air, to nutrient-dense kai. We don't want to be focusing on all those other things that merely distract us. We need to stick to the things that matter. Rongoā Māori and many of our other Indigenous practices are about connection. Connection to the whenua, to the land, to the taiao. It is those connections that create and give mauri. Mauri is the gift of being alive. It begins at the time, for us, it begins at the time of conception, and it leaves us at the time of death. It is the glue between the physical and the spiritual. It is what makes us whole. And caring for the mauri has to be our biggest priority. The mauri of all things have a mauri. We do this mahi, and why we need to protect our medicines is also for the generations yet to come. We've already lost so much biodiversity in the world. I'm not sure how many more generations can survive the depletion, not only of the natural resources, but also the mana that comes with being Indigenous. You know, no Māori ever migrated to Aotearoa. We were Pacific Island peoples who came here looking for a better life. And when we got here, we had to name every river, every mountain, every plant, every breeze. And from that was born Te Reo Māori. We had to create new words for this new world. The reo and the whenua give us context. If you take the land away, then the reo has no meaning. We have no meaning. We have no context. We must maintain those things. I want to remind you all that every single person in this room is Indigenous. Indigenous to somewhere. This is not a Māori thing. We are looking at the world through a Māori lens. That is all. The roots of those not Indigenous to Aotearoa stem from the same earth. Their stories are the same. And Māori, as one of the last peoples on the planet to be colonised, are closer to the earth than my Celtic ancestors. They were burned at the stake for this kind of heretic conversations that we're having here today in the 1600s. That's a big gap for me to step back into that mātauranga. What we talk about today is the lives of those of us in this room that are old enough to remember those connections and the importance of those connections. We need to protect our medicines from exploitation. There is so much in trade agreements that dispossesses the Indigenous peoples of a country and also the other people who live on this country of the tools that they need in order to be well. We have to remember, in the words of Pa McGowan, that we are each entitled to what we need in order to be well. We are not a scourge on this earth. We have a rightful place here as children of Papatūānuku and Ranginui, but we are only entitled to that with which we need to be well. No more, no less. Trade is an essential part of us being well. We do not live in isolation. In our communities, we do not have everything that we need. Trade is imperative to survival. But when is enough enough? When does it get beyond having enough in order to be well? that's when we cross the line. Because there is no upper number. It's take, exploit, exploit, exploit. So protecting our medicines is one way of addressing the problem that we all face. What are some of the things that we learnt? What are some of the things that we've learnt? As we heard today, it's not just Māori who are fighting for right. It's those of us who know the importance of our connection to the taiao and to the whenua. We couldn't have a more appropriately named conference. What I learnt is that in the recent Therapeutic Products Act establishment, that MFAT were present at the highest levels of policy setting. What on earth place does trade have in setting our internal health policy? What place do they have at the table other than to protect the agreements that we have already signed, to ensure that we don't breach agreements in establishing health policy in our country for our people? In my view, and no doubt the lawyers will slap me later, but in my view, we are giving our power to corporates. Corporates, to me, you know, then they're the new tobacco companies. They are asserting their rights over and above the rights of the people and our elected officials through these trade agreements. And that's of real concern to me. I also learned things like the Marine Mammals Protection Act, which we think is great. You know, you don't go killing off your marine mammals. And Māori never, ever hunted whale. We ate them and we used the gifts that were given to us by tangaro, but we never hunted them. But that Marine Mammals Protection Act, it prevents us from access to our rongoā that comes from the tohora. We are allowed to take the teeth and the jawbones for our carvings and for our taonga, but we're not allowed to take the kai. We're not allowed to take the oils that form a big part of our rongoā. That is forbidden under the Marine Mammals Protection Act. The Plant Varieties Act, which has already been talked about, we learnt again that international agreements are forcing our hand in how we treat plants. You know, it's a bit like land. We don't own land. We can never own land. We belong to the land. The plants are not ours to own. They are our allies. They are the things that keep us well. And yet we establish these crazy laws. Also learnt that in the Health Practitioners Competency Assurance Act, this is all in the process of working with these brain boxes over here, is that, you know, they make up rules that outlaw our medicines, that prevent me. They allow natural health product companies to say that the vitamin C that we take in our supplements is natural, and yet it is completely synthesised. But I'm not allowed to say, as used by my tupuna. The law outlaws the truth. How crazy, and not that we listen, by the way, but how crazy is the law? And that has taught me lots of things that I daren't share in public. I've also learnt that confidentiality is not about commercial sensitivity. It is about making the rest of us shut up. Because if you sign a confidentiality clause, you can't argue it. You can't argue the agreement. You have to keep this closed. So I'm one that we have those that have signed them out of necessity, but there are some of us who haven't. And we choose not to sign those because we will not be silenced. I'd rather be in ignorance than to be silenced from what I believe to be the truth. And Annette is right. We bang our head against the wall over and over and over again, knowing that it's going to be hard to change. But it is about education. It is about being at the table, because throughout the therapeutic products bill, the government officials that I worked with over that, 2-3 years, I can honestly say that those officials were on our side. They were working in our interest. They were sharing information that was relevant to us. They were arguing our case in cabinet with the papers that have been shared with us. We can see how they put forward our case. And yet even they couldn't win. Being right is not the same as winning. But we do it so that we can help work with those, with those officials who are people like us. The very first thing that we did when the ministry came to us and said, will you work with us? Will you help us with this bill? In hindsight, probably a little bit of tongue-in-cheek, but I took them at their word. But I did say to them, I will not work with you on this 4th administration over the years unless you come to the bush with me and spend 2 days in the ngahere learning how we think, what we value, and where the health and wellness of our community resides. And your whole team must come, no exceptions. And they came. And they all cried by lunchtime. So, again, being right is not the same as winning. Where to from here? I think that first of all, we need to recognise our Māoritanga. And that's about doing and being who we are as Indigenous peoples of the world. The statistics tell us that Māori are the poorest, the least educated, the most incarcerated people in this country. They are the most under-resourced. I don't believe that rhetoric. I know the facts are true, but that is not the measure of who we are. How is it that the poorest, dumbest, sickest people in this country can stand up and event overnight for 1,000 people with no event manager, no pūtea, no government department standing at their back to catch them when they fall, and be ready at 6 a.m. to manaaki 1,000 visitors? That is not the dumbest, sickest, least educated people in the country. We need to remember who we are. We need to remember our connections, and we need to acknowledge that everyone brings a gift to the table. Everyone. And if you've got that crackhead relative, they know. Stay off the crack, because I'm the one digging the hole tomorrow. Our people come to the fore when we are allowed to be Māori. And I would say that we all rise up when we are allowed to be our Indigenous selves. And we are all Indigenous. I would just like to add what I'm seeing here, and it's probably not that much of a positive note, but I would like to add that in 1862, the Crown saw the strength and the power of the Māori economy. And that's when they ransacked Rangiaowhia to break the economic strength of the Waikato people. Māori are a $70 billion economy today. And that frightens people. I'm not proud of that, it's just a fact. Māori are a $17 billion economy today, and that is frightening people. And it is requiring new tools in order to pull the rug out from under Māori. But it won't ever happen again, because we know who we are. We know what we can achieve. And it didn't ruin us then, and it won't ruin us now. Our job is bigger than caring for us. Our job is bigger than any financial economy. Our job is to ensure that the next generation not only survive, but thrive. And all our work in caring for the whenua is for them. Nō reira, Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. And in the words of our lovely Māori Solomon, the other First Nations people of Aotearoa, the Moriori, me rongo. Kia ora.